Okay, well, yesterday we looked at what do scientists do. Today we're looking at what skills do scientists use. Lesson 2. Go ahead and get your science book out and open it to page 17. If you need to pause the video and do that, pause it now, and then you can restart the video after you get your science book. Engage your brain. Find the answer to the following questions in the lesson and record it here. Splash it, pour it, freeze it, make bubbles in it. What skills might a scientist use to test how water behaves? We're going to find that out. We'll learn some more vocabulary. We'll see large graphics with labels. The labels call attention to important details. Active readers preview a lesson's graphics and decide how the information in them provides details about the main idea. So let's move on to lesson 2. And our main idea, our essential question for this lesson is, what skills do scientists use? Everyday science skills. Do you ask questions about the world around you? If so, you use these science skills all day, every day, just like a scientist. Now, I notice it asks us to look and see the graphics and the different ways things are labeled. So looks like these are going to be our science skills, and it's going to tell us about them below it. Observe. Scientists may observe many things such as changes in color, temperature, and bubbling. We saw that yesterday that scientists observe, but we didn't talk about this one. Infer. Scientists infer how things work by thinking about their observations. A biologist may infer that the color patterns of fish enable them to blend in and avoid predators. Okay, next page. Scientists use inquiry skills. Inquiry means just looking into something or asking questions about it. Scientists use inquiry skills every day, and so do you. When you observe, you use your 5 senses to get information. Let's say you smell cheese, bread, and spicy odors. You infer, I think we're having pizza for lunch today. That sounds good to me. An inference is a statement that explains an observation. That's going to be one of your vocabulary words. An inference is a statement that explains an observation. When you think about how things are the same and different, you compare them. For example, your family wants to adopt a new kitten. You compare different kittens, looking for one that is playful and friendly. When you decide which kitten is best, you communicate that decision to your family. You can communicate by speaking, writing, and by using pictures or models. So we talked about communicating yesterday too, didn't we? Let's look at this down here. Communicate. Scientists communicate or share their results and inferences with other scientists. What did you communicate today? Have you told anybody anything important? When we had our Google Meet today, are you going to communicate, or did you communicate something? Did you tell me about your paper plane experiment and share your results? Then you communicated. Compare. Scientists compare objects and things that happen. Practice the skill of comparing. List ways these two fish are similar and different. So we have a powder blue tang and a porcupine fish. Okay. Well, how are they similar? What might you say? They're both fish. They both have a tail. They both have eyes and a mouth. They're both kind of round in shape. It's hard to tell from the picture, but they look like they're probably pretty close to the same size. So there's some ways, there's some similarities. What are some differences? Well, their colors are different. The texture, how this one looks like smooth, and this one looks like it would hurt to touch it, like a porcupine. Squeals on it. So the way they feel is different. This one looks like it's probably thin or skinny. This one looks like it's blowed up like a balloon. So there's some differences. We compared them. Okay, page 20. Think like a scientist. Scientists use these skills every day in their investigations. Find out what they are and when you might use them. So here's some more things scientists do. They predict. Scientists use their observations and existing research to make predictions about what will happen in the future. For example, a meteorologist uses weather patterns to determine whether it will rain over the weekend. Scientists use variables. When scientists plan experiments, they think, what's the one thing I will change? What was the variable in your plane experiment yesterday? The variable was the wing size, right? You had a plane with a skinny wing, a medium wing, and a wide wing. Which one flew better? Your variable was the size of the wings you made on the plane. That one thing that you change is a variable. Let's say you want to find out how cold a freezer has to be, to make fruit pops. The variable that you will change is the temperature inside the freezer. Some science skills are part of doing science investigations, including experiments. They may sound unfamiliar to you, but when you read about these skills, you might realize that you already use them. Page 21. Some more things that scientists do. They plan and conduct investigations. Scientists plan and conduct investigations that will answer science questions. Say you want to know how salty water must be to make an egg float. First, you think about the steps you'll take to find the answer. Next, you'll gather the materials you'll use. Then you test the amount of salt. Scientists hypothesize. Scientists hypothesize when they think of a testable statement that tries to explain an observation. Suppose you notice the water seems to evaporate at different rates from containers with different shapes. What would you hypothesize is a cause? What would we guess? We might say that smaller containers would cause water to evaporate faster because there's less water in them. That might be something we had hypothesized. And we draw conclusions, scientists do. Scientists draw conclusions when they use evidence to evaluate a hypothesis. If you investigate how the size of a sail affects how quickly a toy boat moves, you might conclude that boats with larger sails move faster because larger sails collect more wind. Let's look up here. You're a marine biologist. You study living things in the ocean. What is one investigation you might plan? Can you think of something? Could you investigate what kind of fish is a shark's favorite? How would you investigate that? Well, you'd have to watch sharks eat, wouldn't you? Predict what a marine biologist might look for on a dive. Well, if they're studying life, they're going to look for fish that are alive, maybe plants that are alive in the ocean, maybe bacteria or other things that are living in the water. Okay, let's go to the next page. Math and science skills. Using rulers and balances, putting things in order, measuring the speed of a car, making tables and graphs. Sounds like math, but it's science too. Every scientist uses math. Let's say you're a marine biologist who studies whales. You classify whales by how much they weigh or how long they are from head to tail. You put them in order when you arrange them by length from smallest to largest. You use numbers to tell how many are alive today. You use time and space relationships to investigate when and where they might migrate each year. You measure how long they are and how much food they eat. You record and display the results of your investigation in writing and in tables, graphs, and maps. So lots of things in there. Classifying and ordering things. We use numbers maybe to measure. We use numbers, and there's time and space relationships. What's that? Okay, in the month of March, how many whales do we see off the coast of, Massachusetts? So during that time, in that place, how many whales are there? And then compare it to how many whales there were in September off the coast of Massachusetts. That's a time and space relationship. Okay? So let's read this down here. Classify and order. You classify things when you put them into groups. To put things in order, you make a list in which position matters, such as ordering bird species by how fast they fly or move. Measuring. In science and math, you measure by using tools to find length, width, height, mass, weight, volume, and elapsed time. And using numbers, you use numbers when you observe by counting or measuring. You also use numbers to compare and order. You use numbers to describe speed and force. All of these are things that scientists do. Do the math. Some of the world's biggest mammals live under the ocean's waves. The table gives the names of several kinds of whales and the number that scientists estimate are alive today. So here's the kinds of whales, whoops, and here's the population. That's the number of whales that are alive today. So there's 200,000 beluga whales, only 14,000 blue whales, 55,000 fin whales, 40,000 humpback whales, 1 million minke whales, 1,200,000 pilot whales, 54,000 sei whales, and I don't see any number for sperm whales on this chart, so we will just leave that one off. Which two kinds of whales have the closest number alive? The closest. Well, I see 54,000 and 55,000. That's only 1,000 apart. So the sei whale and the fin whale have the closest numbers alive. How many more pilot whales are there than minke whales? Well, there's 1,200,000 pilot whales and 1 million minke whales. So if we subtracted 1 million from 1,200,000, there would be 200,000 left. So the answer would be 200,000. Scientists estimate there are about 360,000 sperm whales alive today. Write that number using numerals in the table. Well, we can't do it here, but it would be, what would it be? 360,000, 360,000. You could do that because that's what we're learning in math, isn't it? Use time and space relationships. You use stopwatches and clocks to tell the time. You can predict when it will be high tide or low tide. You can also determine how the planets move in space. Record and display data. You record observations on clipboards and notebooks and on computers. You display or show data so that it's easy to understand by making tables, graphs, or diagrams. Let's move on. And I believe we finished the lesson in your book on page 24. Scientists use skills, everyday science skills, science investigation skills, math and science skills. I want you to use the cheat. I want you to cheat off the answer key, and I want you to fill in the blanks here, just so that you'll have this column in your book, okay? Now, on this page, it's a little bit confusing, but I think you can figure it out. The red words are in the wrong sentence. So I want you to try to figure out which red word goes in this sentence and where hypothesizes goes. So you're going to have to, in your book, I want you to write the correct red word that should be in this sentence. So let's see if we can figure out number one. In order to sort his beakers and other tools, Dr. Mallory hypothesizes each object by size and shape. No. What would we do when we collect objects by size and shape? Which one of these words? That's classifying, isn't it? That's classifying. So in your book, you would need to write classifies right here. Okay, so hypothesize is going to go in one of these others. So do that because you're going to have another little vocabulary quiz using these words. Okay, I want you to go and after you do this, do the vocabulary quiz. Let's look at one more page together. If we're going to apply the concepts we learned today, this says, how would you use numbers to investigate each object? So here's an octopus. What numbers might we use to investigate that? We might say, how many arms does an octopus have? There's numbers. Bubbles. How could we use numbers to investigate? Well, we could say, how many bubbles can you blow with one breath? Or here's some kind of scooter. What kind of numbers can you use with that? You could measure it, couldn't you? How long is a scooter? How tall is a scooter? You might want to do something like, how far will a scooter go with one kick? And you could measure that with numbers. Number 3, for each one, what kinds of observations could you record on a calendar? Well, the moon looks different at night, doesn't it? Sometimes it looks like a crescent moon. Sometimes it's a full moon. Sometimes this curve is on the other side over here. So we could record the shape of the moon on a calendar. That would be an observation. What could we observe about this mama duck feeding her babies? Well, we might record when the chicks are born. We might record when they first fly, or when they take their first swim? What could we record about a thunderstorm on a calendar? Well, we could keep track of the days that it storms in September this month, right? So there's some ways that we could observe these three things on a calendar. And that ends today's lesson because that begins tomorrow's lesson there. So I want you to do those pages in your book, and then I want you to go and do the vocabulary quiz I created for you. We'll see you later.